Alright, this is lesson 58 for 8th grade, and today we're going to talk about solving percent problems with equations. And we've been working with percent all year, but this lesson in particular will help us set up problems with equations to make things a little bit easier. And we're going to use the language of math to help us do that. As we've seen, if we're trying to find the percent of a whole to get that part, we have an equation where we take a percent of the whole to get a certain amount of that whole, or a part of that whole. And that's kind of the basis of these problems. What we're going to do is first notice here, to find the percent of a whole is a part, we can look at of, that means to multiply, is means equals. So percent times the whole equals a part. And that's what we're going to use in these scenarios. And we have a couple ways we can do these things. So the problems actually set themselves up. We just have to remember what the words mean. And we can do this with a decimal or a fraction. Okay? So first thing they say here, 32 ounces is 25% of a gallon. How many ounces is a gallon? So we want to figure out how many ounces is a gallon by taking 32 ounces. And we know that 32 ounces is 25% of a gallon. So let's set that up. I'm going to first set it up as a decimal. So 32 ounces is equals 25%. 25% as a decimal is 0.25 of multiply a gallon. We'll use G for that. We are solving for G to figure out how many ounces are in a gallon. Okay, now we have an equation set up. We have 0.25 times G is 32. So, oops, sorry about that. If we use our well, we have been doing two-step equations, so this one should be easy for us. To solve for a variable, we do the opposite of what's happening to it, and we do that on both sides. So we're multiplying by 0.25, which means we're going to divide by 0.25 on both sides. And we'll see what we get. These will cancel with each other. You're left with 1G, or just G. And then if we do 32 divided by 0.25, we should get 128 ounces. So there should be 128 ounces in a gallon. Alright? We can also do this where we use 25% as a fraction. Still set up the same way. 32 equals, and 25% is a fraction, that's 25 out of 100. 25 out of 100 reduces to 1/4. That's 1/4 times a gallon, or 1/4 times G. Now this is a little different. We could do the same process like we did here. We could divide by 1/4. But as we know, when we divide by 1/4 or divide by a fraction, we're actually going to be multiplying by the reciprocal. And if we remember that rule right away, we can just do that right away. So if I multiply by the reciprocal on this side, 4 over 1 is the reciprocal, what ends up happening is your 4's cancel out. Here, I'll stick with the red. 4's cancel out with each other. And your 1's cancel out with each other, although the 1's don't really matter. And you're left with just G on this side. But we also have to multiply this side by 4 over 1. But it's essentially just saying 32 times 4, which again is 128 ounces. Alright? So either way we arrive at the same answer. It's up to you which one you want to use. Sometimes the fraction is easier, sometimes the decimal is easier. It really depends on what you're feeling. Alright. A couple more examples here. Alright, for taxes, I'm not going to go over this one, but this would be one where a fraction, well, you could do either, a decimal or a fraction. I'll set it up for us, but typically with percents, decimals are the easier way to go. So we're trying to figure out how much he'll pay in tax, and the tax is 7% of 8,500. So if we go the decimal route, let's do black again. We do 0 or 0.07, 7% as a decimal, times 8,500. And that could get us our answer. We could also do 7% as a fraction, this is 7/100th, times 8,500, or 8,500 over 1. Alright, and the reason why the fraction works out nicely this time is 8,500, we know that 100 goes in there evenly, and then we can do this divided by 100 times 7 and get our answer that way. So those are two ways you can set those up. I'll check the answer here if you want to go through and do that. It should come out to $595 for the tax. So $595. Alright. Let's check these. It says we can decide whether to use the percent as a decimal or a fraction, and really for me, it doesn't matter, but I can tell you my opinion on these. It says for A, the sales tax is 8.25%. What is the sales tax on a $18.97 purchase? This one I would say use the decimal for sure, because there's not much that's going to go into $18.97 evenly. Especially not, well, I can tell you 100 won't go in there evenly. So let's do 0.825, that's this as a decimal, times $18.97. So there, I would use the decimal. For B, it says shirts are on sale for 33 1/3% off the regular price. How much is saved on a $24 shirt? Once again, they're asking us what will be saved here. I would say we would use the fraction for this one. 33 1/3% is also, as a fraction, just equal to 1/3. So 1/3 of $24. 24 over 1. And if we go through and solve B, that's essentially saying, 24 divided by 3, you would save $8 there. Okay? And lastly, this is a good one because a lot of times when we hand back tests or assignments, students ask me why, or not why, but what percent they got or what grade they got. Well, it says that this one, or for this student, she answered 23 out of 25 questions correct. What percent of questions did she answer correctly? So that's 23 out of 25. And we know that percents are out of 100, which means this one is a little easier than some will be, because 25 goes into 100 evenly. So if we can get this to 100 and use that same rule up here, we can get our percent, which will be the numerator. And if we multiply by 4 over 4, this is how we do it. 25 times 4 is 100. 23 times 4 is 92. And this 92 out of 100 is 92%, which in my class is an A-, but a good score. The other way you would have to do this, if your denominator did not go into 100 evenly, you would have to do 23 divided by 25. So how many 25s go into 23? And we should end up getting the same answer. So I'm going to say 25 goes into 23 0 times, but it goes into 230 9 times, because we should get the same answer. 9 times 5, 45. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 4 is 22. Do our subtraction. 5, drop out this 0, 50, 25 goes into 50 twice. So we get 0.92. This decimal is equal to 92%. So we get the same answer that way. Alright, so just some review on our percents and decimals and things like that, fractions, and that's what we went over today. We'll cover that assignment tomorrow.